And there it goes. Beautiful, beautiful. I just remembered that I dropped the book. Congrats on getting first, yeah. The book fell out. Adios. Go ahead, read. Don't read. Just getting started into March 2. Let me get my mic in the right spot. Chapter 18 for anybody who's snagged the book and wanting to follow along. Oh, I forgot. Hold on. I forgot one more thing. Watch this one. Oh my god. That's just Miss Pippi. Fantastic. Hi, Jack. I'm a little later than I normally would be. I had 4.7 million VP, so I had to spend a whole bunch. But good news is we're up through Ghostface now to 20. Yeah. So, good stuff, good stuff. We're making good progress. Anyway, continue. Chapter 18. The year Fire had spent training her father to experience things that didn't exist was also, thankfully, the year her relationship with Archer found a new happiness. I'm sorry you're not feeling well, Jack. That really sucks. Cantrell hadn't minded experiencing non-existent things, for it was a time when existing things depressed him. I think I've already read some of this, but I'm just gonna go through because this is approximately where we were. Nax had been his conduit to all pleasures, and Nax was gone. Brigand grew more influential and had escaped another attack uninjured. It was some relief for Cantrell to feel sun on his skin in the midst of weeks of drizzle, or to taste monster meat when it was not being served. There was solace in the touch of his daughter's mind, now that she knew better than to turn flames into flowers. On her side of things, Fire's body suffered. She lost her appetite, grew thin, had attacks of dizziness, got cramps in her neck and shoulders that made playing music painful, and brought on splitting headaches. She avoided contemplation of the things she was thinking of doing. She was certain that if she looked at it straight on, she'd lose control of herself. Archer was not, in fact, the only person that year to bring her comfort. A young woman named Liddy, sweet and hazel-eyed, was the maid of Fire's bedrooms. She came upon Fire one spring day, curled on the bed, fighting off a whirling panic. Liddy liked her mild young lady, and was sorry at her distress. She sat beside Fire and stroked her hair, at Fire's forehead and behind her ears, against her neck and down to the small of her back. The touch was kindly meant, and the deepest and tenderest comfort in the world. Fire found herself resting her head in Liddy's lap, while Liddy continued stroking. It was a gift, offered unjealously, and Fire accepted it. That day, from that moment, something quiet grew between them. An alliance. They brushed each other's hair sometimes, helped each other dress and undress. They stole time together, whispering like little girls who've discovered a soulmate. Some things could not happen in Cantrell's proximity without Cantrell knowing. Monsters knew things. Cantrell began to complain about Liddy. He did not like her. He did not like the time they spent together. Finally, he lost patience and arranged a marriage for Liddy, sending her away to an estate beyond the town. Fire was breathless, astounded, and heartbroken. Certainly, she was glad that he'd merely sent Liddy away, not killed her or taken her into his own bed to teach her a lesson. But still, it was a bitter and selfish cruelty. It did not make her merciful. Perhaps her lonesomeness after Liddy prepared her for Archer, though Liddy and Archer were manifestly different. During that spring and into the summer when she turned 15, Archer knew what mad thing Fire was contemplating. He knew why she wouldn't eat and why her body suffered. It tormented him, took him out of his mind with fear for her. He fought with her about it. He fought with Brocker, who was also worried, but who nonetheless refused to interfere. Over and over, Archer begged Fire to release herself from the entire endeavor. Over and over, Fire refused. One August night, during a frantic, whispered battle under a tree outside her house, he kissed her. She stiffened, startled, and then knew, as his hands reached for her and he kissed her again, that she wanted this. She needed Archer. Her body needed this wildness that was also comfort. She burrowed herself against him. She brought him inside and upstairs, and that was that. Child companions became lovers. They found a place where they could agree, a release from the anxiety and unhappiness that threatened to overwhelm them. After making love with her friend, Fire often found herself wanting to eat. Kissing her and laughing, Archer would feed her in her own bed with the food he carried in through the window. Chancellor knew, of course, but where her gentle love of Liddy had been intolerable to him, her need for Archer roused nothing stronger than an amused acceptance of the inevitable. He didn't care, as long as she took the herbs when she needed to. 2 of us is enough, Fire, he'd said smoothly. She heard the threat in his words toward the baby she wasn't going to have. She took the herbs. Archer did not act jealous in those days, or domineering. That came later. Hey, Jay. Fire knew too well that things didn't ever stay the same. Natural beginnings came to natural or unnatural ends. She was eager to see Archer, more than eager, but she knew that he would come to what he would come to King City hoping for. She wasn't looking forward to putting this end into words for him. Fire had taken to describing the foggy Archer to everyone she questioned, very briefly at the end of each interview. So far, it was to no avail. Lady, Brigham said to her today in Garen's bedroom, have you learned anything yet about that Archer? I'm glad you've got plenty of energy, Jade. That's awesome. No, Lord Prince, no one seems to recognize his description. Well, he said, I hope you'll keep asking. Garen's health had had a setback, but he refused to go into the infirmary or stop working, which meant that in recent days his bedchamber had become quite a hub of activity. Breathing was a difficulty, and he had no strength to sit up. Despite this, he remained more than capable of holding his side of an argument. Forget the Archer, he said now. We have more important matters to discuss, such as the exorbitant cost of your army. He glared at Brigham, who'd propped himself against the wardrobe too directly in Fire's line of vision to ignore, tossing a ball back and forth in his hands that she recognized as a toy she'd seen Blotchy and Hannah fighting over on occasion. It's far too expensive, Garen continued, still glaring from his bed. You pay them too much, and then when they're injured or dead and no use to us, you continue to pay them. Brigham shrugged. And? You think we're made of money? I will not cut their pay. Brigham, Garen said wearily, we cannot afford it. We must afford it. The eve of a war is not the time to start cutting an army's pay. How do you think I've managed to recruit so many? Do you think them so shot through with loyalty for the bloodline of Nax that they wouldn't turn to my dog if he offered more? As I understood it, Garen said, the lot of them would pay for the privilege of dying in defense of none other than you. Nash spoke from his seat in the window, where he was a dark shape outlined in the light of a blue sky. He'd been sitting there for some time. Fire knew that he was watching her. And that's because he always sticks up for them, Garen, when brutes like you try to take their money away. I wish you would rest. You look like you're about to pass out. Hi, Lexi. We're reading a book. It's called Fire by Kristen Cashore. Although we're like over halfway through, so we're kind of in the middle of the things. Don't patronize me, Garen said, and then dissolved into a fit of coughing that had the sound of a saw blade tearing through wood. Fire leaned forward in her chair and touched Garen's damp face. She'd come to an understanding with him regarding this bout of illness. He insisted on working, and so she agreed to bring him her reports from the questioning rooms, but only if he allowed her into his mind to ease the sense of his throbbing head and burning lungs. Thank you, he said to her softly, taking her hand and holding it to his chest. His conversation rots. They give me some good news from the questioning rooms. I'm afraid there isn't any, Lord Prince. Still coming up with contradiction? They do not live together. She lives nearby, but she does not live with them. She has her own house. But she's also currently not at her house. She is out of their immediate area. I don't know what it's called. Most certainly. A messenger told me yesterday that my dog has definite plans to make an attack against both the king and Lord Genshin in November. Then today a new fellow told me my dog has definite plans to move his entire army north into Pikia and wait for war between Genshin and the king to play out before he so much as raises a sword. Plus, I spoke to a spy of Genshin's who says Genshin killed Lady Murkda in an ambush in August. Regan was spinning the ball now at the end of his finger absent-mindedly. I met with Lady Murkda on the 15th of September, he said. She wasn't particularly friendly, but she was plainly not dead. It was a tendency in the questioning rooms that had arisen suddenly in recent weeks, contradiction and misinformation coming from all sides and making it difficult to know which sources to trust. The messengers and spies Fire questioned were clear-headed and truthful with their knowledge. It was simply that their knowledge was wrong. All at the Delian court knew what it meant. Both My Dog and Genshin were aware that Fire had joined the ranks of the enemy. To lessen the advantage she gave the Delian throne, both rebel lords began misinforming some among their own people, and then sending them out to get caught. There are people close to both men, Garen said. People who know the truth of their plans. We need those people, a close ally of My Dog's and one of Genshin's. And they have to be people we'd never suspect normally, for neither My Dog nor Genshin must ever suspect us of questioning them. We need an ally of My Dog's or Genshin's pretending to be among the most loyal allies of the king, Rickon said. Shouldn't be so hard, really. If I shot an arrow out of the window, I'd probably hit one. It seems to me, Fire said carefully, that if I take a less direct approach, if I questioned every person we're holding about things I haven't bothered to investigate before, every party they've ever been to, every conversation they've ever overheard but perhaps not understood the significance of, every horse they've ever seen heading south when it should have been heading north. Yes, Bricken said, it might yield something. And where are the women? Fire said. Enough men. Give me the women My Dog and Genshin have taken to bed, and the barmaids who had to serve them their wine. Men are daft around women, incautious and boastful. There must be 100 women out there carrying information we could use. A Legion. Nash spoke soberly. That seems good advice. I don't know, Garen said. I'm offended. He stopped, choked by a spasm of coughing. Nash moved to his brother's bed, sat beside him, and held his shoulder to steady him. She's actually not that bad today. No, they're not speaking a metaphor. These are actual, like, war plans. They're trying, spy versus spy kind of nonsense. Garen reached to shake a hand to Nash. Nash clasped it in his. It always struck Fire, the physical affection between those siblings, who as often as not were at each other's throats over one thing or another. Okay, Lex. She liked the way the four of them shifted and changed shape, bumping and clanging against one another, sharpening each other's edges, then smoothing them down again, and somehow always finding the way to fit together again. And, Brigham said, returning quietly to his previous topic, don't give up on the archer, lady. And that's where we'll pause. Now, let's go get some murdering done. It is very interesting. I enjoy the book quite a bit. Mm. Beautiful. Beautiful. It's technically supposed to be a medieval-like time period. A little too far. Beautiful. Oh my gosh. These gens are kind of nuts. Perfect. Awesome. That's kind of huge, actually. Perfect. Ooh, lag. Fuck. You get to try 2v8. It's fun. Oh my gosh. What was that? It, like, made it shorter. Yeah, it's like cutting my blinks short. It's really weird. Here we go. Just in case. So they're not working on any gens far away right now. Perfect. Awesome. Damn. Goodness, these doors are like insanely far apart. Ah, they were healing in an exit gate. Oh well, that's not bad. Especially for a first match. I'm gonna go back to Wraith. Okay. Yeah, I was also cleaning up after Legion's injures, so there's gonna be some discrepancy in that. Alright, so from Brigand, don't give up on the archer, lady. I won't, for he troubles me much, Fire said, and then sensed the approach of an altogether different archer. She looked into her lap to hide her flush of joy. Lord Archer has just arrived at court, she said. Welkley is bringing him here now. Ah, Brigand said, and here's the man we should recruit to shoot arrows out the windows. Yes, Garen said wickedly. I hear his arrow is always finding new targets. I'd hit you if you weren't flat on your back, Brigand said, suddenly angry. Behave yourself, Garen, Nash hissed. Before Fire could even begin to react to the argument, which struck her as rather funny, Buckley and Archer were through the door and everyone but Garen was standing. Lord King, Archer said immediately, dropping to his knee before Nash. Lord Princes, he said next, standing to take Brigand's hand and stooping to take Garen's. Jack, that's kind of not an okay thing to say. I understand you mean it as a joke, but like, in the current day and age, it's just not good. He turned to Fire. With great propriety, he took her hands in his, and the instant their eyes met, he was laughing and glinting with mischief. His face was so happy and Archer-like that she began to laugh as well. He lifted her up to give her a proper hug. He smelled like home, like the northern autumn rains. She went for a walk with Archer around the palace grounds. The trees were blazing with autumn color. Fire was astonished now and thrilled with the tree beside the greenhouse, because in recent days it had transformed into the closest natural thing she'd ever seen to her hair. Archer told her how bleak the north was in comparison. He told her about Brocker's activities in the year's good harvest, and his passage south with 10 soldiers through the rain. I brought your favorite musician, Archer said, and he's brought his whistle. Well, Fire said, smiling. Thank you, Archer. This guard on our heels is all very well, Archer said. But when can we be alone? I'm never alone. I always have a guard, even in my bedchamber. Surely that can change now I'm here. Why don't you tell them to go away? They're under Brigand's orders, not mine, Fire said lightly. And as it turns out, he's quite stubborn. I haven't been able to change his mind about it. Well, Archer said, smirking, I will change his mind. I dare say he understands our need of privacy, and his authority over you must lessen now that I'm here. Of course, Fire thought, and Archer's own authority must rise up to replace it. Her temper flared out. She caught at the ends of it and hauled it back in. There's something I must tell you, Archer, and you're not going to like it. His entire manner changed instantly. Mouth hard, eyes flashing, and Fire was amazed at how fast their reunion had turned to this. She stopped and stared at him in exasperation, spoke over to stop him. Archer, stay within your rights. Don't you dare start accusing me of taking some man to my bed. A woman, then? It wouldn't be entirely without precedent, would it? No, Fire is her name. She clenched her fists so hard her nails hurt the palms of her hands, and suddenly she was no longer concerned with holding on to the ends of her fury. I was so excited for you to come, she said. I was so happy to see you, and now already you've started in on me. I wish you would leave. You understand me, Archer? When you get like this, I wish you would leave. The love I give you, you take, and you use it against me. She swung away from him, strode away, came back again and stood furious before him, aware that this was the first time she'd ever spoken to him this way. She should have spoken like this more. She'd been too generous with her patience. We're not lovers anymore, she thought at him. This is the thing I need to tell you. The closer you get to me, the harder you pull, and your grip is too tight. You hurt me with it. You love me so much you've forgotten how to be my friend. I miss my friend, she thought at him fiercely. I love my friend. We're through as lovers. Do you understand? Archer stood, dazed, breathing heavily, eyes stony. Fire could see that he did understand. And now Fire saw Hannah, and sensed her at the same time, coming over the hill at the archery range and bolting toward them with all her small speed. Fire began a battle for her composure. There's a child coming, told Archer hoarsely. If you take your vile mood out on her, I won't speak to you again. Who is she? Brigand's daughter. Archer stared at Fire very hard. And then Hannah reached them, Blotchy careening close behind. Fire knelt to meet the dog. Hannah stopped before them, smiling and gasping, and Fire sensed her sudden confusion as she took in their silence. What's wrong, Lady Fire? Hannah asked. Nothing, Lady Princess. I'm happy to see you and Blotchy. Hannah laughed. He's getting your dress muddy. Yes, Blotchy was destroying her dress and practically bowling her over as he bounced in and out of her lap, for in his mind he was still a puppy, even though his body had grown. Blotchy is much more important than my dress, Fire said, taking the wriggling dog in her arms, wanting his muddy joy. Hannah came close and whispered in her ear, Is that angry man Lord Archer? Yes, and he is not angry with you. Do you think he would shoot for me? Shoot for you? Papa says he's the best in the kingdom. I want to see. Fire couldn't have explained why this made her so sad, that Archer should be the best in the kingdom and Hannah should want to see. She burrowed her face for a moment against Blotchy. Lord Archer, Princess Hannah would like to see you shoot, for she's heard you're the best in all the dells. Archer was hiding his feelings from her mind, but Fire knew how to read his face. She knew how his eyes looked when he was blinking back tears, and the muted voice he used when he was too miserable for anger. He cleared his throat now, and spoke in that voice. And what kind of bow do you favor, Lady Princess? A long bow, like the one you carry, only yours is much bigger. Will you come? I'll show you. Archer didn't look at Fire. He turned and followed Hannah up the hill, Blotchy bounding after them. Fire stood and watched them go. Quite unexpectedly, Musa took her arm. Fire placed her hand on Musa's, grateful to be touched, fiercely glad to think that a guard might be overpaid. Dogs are nice. I don't mind them. I'm just more of a cat person. Just for me, I love the purrs. I love having them climb up on my shoulder sometimes just to get a better look at things. Watching them sprint around chasing after the red dot. Watching them battle to bathe each other's faces. It's one of my favorite things. It was a very hard thing to have crushed the heart and the hopes of a friend. You guys, 17? Oh, wow. Getting up there. My old lady lived to 24. I had to put her down a couple of years ago now, and that was rough. Couple of years. Still has quite a few years left. It was her time. She lived a really long time. Like 24 is insane for a cat, especially since their average lifespan indoors is like 16, I think, and average not even 16, I think 14, and the average lifespan outdoors is like 8. So maybe not average. I don't know. Maybe average for the ones that make it past kittenhood. Bonjour. After dark, unable to sleep, she went to the roofs. Eventually, Brigand came wandering by and joined her. Now and then, since their conversation in the stables, he opened a flash of feeling to her. Tonight, she could tell he was surprised to see her. Fire knew why he was surprised. After her quarrel with Archer, Musa had told her, matter-of-factly, that at Fire's request, Fire actually was permitted to be alone with Archer. that in the very beginning, in his instructions, Briggan had made an exception for Archer as long as the grounds outside the windows were guarded and guards stood outside every door. She should have informed the lady of this before, Musa said, but she hadn't expected Lord Archer so soon, and once Fire and Archer had begun to argue, she hadn't wanted to interrupt. Fire's face had burned at this knowledge, and here was why Briggan had defended Archer in Garen's bedroom earlier. He'd seen Garen's jibe as an offense to Fire, believed, even, that Fire was in love with Archer. Fire told Musa, "The exception is not necessary." "Yes, I got that sense," Musa said. Then Mila brought Fire a cup of wine in the timid, comprehending way Mila had. The wine was a comfort. Fire's head had begun to ache, and she recognized the onset of her pre-bleeding time. Now, on the roof, Fire was silent. She said nothing, not even when Briggan greeted her. He seemed to accept her silence and was rather quiet himself, filling the space occasionally with the gentle patter of his conversation. He told her that Hannah was bedazzled by Archer, that they'd shot so many arrows together she had blisters between her fingers. Fire was thinking about Archer's fear. She thought it was Archer's fear that made his love so hard to bear. Archer was controlling and imperious, and jealous and suspicious, and Archer always held her too near, because he was afraid of her dying. She broke a long silence with her first words of the night, spoke so quietly he moved closer to hear. "How long do you think you'll live?" His breath was a surprised laugh. "Truly, I don't know. Many mornings I wake knowing I might die that day." He paused. "Why? What's on your mind tonight, lady?" Fire said, "It's likely one of these days a raptor monster will get me, or some arrow will find its way past my guard. It doesn't seem to me a morbid thought, only realistic." He listened, leaning against the railing, his head propped on his fist. "I only hope it won't cause my friends too much pain," she continued. "I hope they'll understand it was inevitable." She shivered. Summer was well over, and if she'd had half a mind tonight, she would have brought a coat. Briggan had remembered his coat. Fine, long coat that Fire liked because Briggan was wearing it. And Briggan was quick and strong and always seemed comfortable, whatever he was wearing. And now his hands reached for the buttons and he shrugged himself out of the coat. For try as she might, Fire couldn't hide her shivers. "No," Fire said, "it's my own fault for forgetting the season." He ignored this and helped her into the coat, which was too big, and its warmth and bigness were welcome. And so was its smell of wool and campfires and horses. She whispered into his mind, "Thank you." After a moment, he said, "It seems we're both afflicted with sober thoughts tonight." "What have you been thinking?" That unhappy laugh again. "Nothing that will cheer you. I've been trying to find a way around this war." "Oh," Fire said, rising for a moment from her self-absorption. "It's a fruitless line of thought. There's no way around it, not with two enemies bent on fighting." "It's not your fault, you know." He glanced at her. "Reading my mind, lady?" She smiled. "Lucky guess, I suppose." He smiled too, and raised his face to the sky. "I understand you rank dogs above dresses, lady." Fire's own laughter was a balm to her heart. "I explained about the monsters, by the way. She already knew a bit about it. I think your housekeeper takes good care of her." "Tess," Briggan said. "She's taken good care since the day Hannah was born." He seemed to hesitate then, his voice carefully inscrutable. "Have you met her?" "No," Fire said, for indeed Briggan's housekeeper still looked upon Fire with cold eyes whenever she looked upon her, as Briggan must know, judging by the manner of asking. "I think it's good for Hannah to have someone old in her life," Briggan said, "who can talk of all different times, not just the last 30 years. And Hannah loves Tess and all her stories." He yawned and rubbed his hair. "When will you start your new line of questioning?" "Tomorrow, I suppose." "Tomorrow," he said, sighing. "Tomorrow, I go away." And that is where we pause, and then we'll get into chapter 19. All right. Jeez. What? Got him. Oh, that was so close. There we go. Welcome back, Lex. I blocked that. That's bullshit. The delay on my uncloak. God, that's so annoying. Thank you for the self-care. Oh my gosh. Just respect that and get in here. There we go. Damn. Oh my gosh. We don't have anybody dead. This really sucks. Okay, never mind. Now we have one person dead. Damn. That should have been a hit. Oh well. GG's, man. Started really getting down to the wire. Whew. Damn. Really? Lame. Like... Yeah. Right. And now we continue. If I have the book right set up. Right. Chapter 19. Fire had come to know more about the insignificant habits and tastes of Lord Mydog, Lord Genshin, Merkda, Gunnar, and all their households and all their guests that any person could care to know. She knew Genshin was ambitious, but also slightly featherbrained at times, and had a delicate stomach, ate no rich foods, and drank only water. She knew his son Gunnar was cleverer than his father, a reputable soldier, a bit of an ascetic when it came to wine and women. Mydog was the opposite, denied himself no pleasure, was lavish with his favorites, but stingy with everyone else. Merkda was stingy with everyone, including herself, and known to be exceedingly fond of bread pudding. This was not helpful information. Clara and the king had better things to do than sit and witness its discovery, and Garen was still confined to his bed. More and more, Fire was left alone in the questioning rooms, excepting, of course, Musa, Mila, and Neil. Regan had ordered these three to attend Fire in any of her confidential court business, and they spent the greater part of every day with her. Archer stood sometimes with her guard while she worked. He had asked permission to do so, and Clara had granted it, and so, rather absently, had Fire. She didn't mind Archer's presence. She understood that he was curious. She only minded the sense she got that Clara was more likely to join the interrogation if Archer was there. Archer was quiet these days, keeping to himself, his thoughts hidden behind a closed door. Confusion obvious, at times, in his manner. Fire was as gentle with him as she could be, for she appreciated what she knew must be a conscious effort on his part to suppress his own instinct for furious outbursts. "How long will you be able to stay at court?" she asked him, so that he would know she didn't really want him to leave. He cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Now that the harvest is over, Brocker is well able to handle affairs. I could stay for some time, if I wanted." She made no answer to that, but touched his arm and asked him if he'd like to sit in on this afternoon's interrogations. She learned that Mydog favored the smuggled wine of an obscure Piccian vineyard where frost came early and the grapes were left to freeze on the vine. I love her. GG's. We really had to clutch up there at the end. That was stressful. Oh my gosh. She learned that Merkda and her Piccian husband, the naval explorer, were thought to be very much in love. Finally, and at long last, she learned something useful, the name of a tall, dark-eyed archer with spot-on aim, who was old enough by now to have white hair. "Jod," her informant grunted. "Knew him some 20 years ago. We were together in old Nax's dungeons till Jod got out. He was in for rape. Didn't know he was sick. Not surprised, the way they piled us on top of each other, the things you went on in there. You know what I'm talking about, you monster freak bitch. Where is he now?" It wasn't easy with this man, or pleasant. At every question he fought against her hold, and then lost the fight and succumbed, ashamed and hateful. "How should I know? I hope he's hunting monster-eating bitch dogs like you. I'd like to watch him." What followed was a description of a violation so graphic, Fire couldn't help but feel the force of its malice. But the prisoners who spoke to her like this only made her patient and oddly depressed. It seemed to Fire that they had a right to use their words, the only defense they had against her ill use. And, of course, these were the men who would be dangerous to her if ever released. Some of them so dangerous, she was compelled to recommend they never be released. And this did not help soothe her guilt. True, these were not men whose freedom would be a boon to society. Nevertheless, they would not be so inhumanely vile had she not been around to provoke them. The man today fared worse than most others, for Archer came forward suddenly and punched him in the face. "Archer!" Fire exclaimed. She called for the dungeon guards to take the man away, which they did, lifting him from the floor where he lay dizzy and bleeding. Once he was gone, Fire gaped at Archer, then glared, too exasperated to trust herself to speak. "I'm sorry," he said sullenly, yanking his collar loose as if it choked him. "That one got under my skin more than others." "Archer, I simply can't. I said I was sorry. I won't do it again." Fire crossed her arms and stared him down. After a few moments, Archer actually began to smile. He shook his head, sighing hopelessly. "Perhaps it's the promise of your angry face that keeps me misbehaving," he said. "You're so beautiful when you're angry." "Archer," she snapped. "Flirt with someone else." "I will, if you command it," he quipped with a goofy grin that caught her off guard, so she had to stop her own face from twitching into a smile. For a moment, it was almost as if they were friends again. She had a serious conversation with Archer a few days later at the archery range, where she had come with her fiddle looking for Krell. She found Krell with Archer, Hannah, and the King, all four of them shooting at targets, and Hannah well boosted by advice from all sides. Hannah concentrated hard, her feet planted stubbornly, miniature bow in her hands, miniature arrows on her back, and she was not talking. It was a characteristic Fire had noted. In writing, swordplay, and archery, and any other lesson that interested her, Hannah ceased her chatter and showed a surprising capacity for focus. Brigand, too, used to focus like that in his lessons, Clara had told Fire. And when he did, it was a great relief to Rowan, for otherwise, guaranteed, he was plotting some kind of trouble. I believe he used to provoke Nax on purpose. He knew Nax favored Nash. "Is that true?" Fire asked. "Oh, yes, lady. Nash was better looking, and Brigand was better at everything else, and more like his mother than his father, which I don't think worked in his favor. Ah, well, at least he didn't start the brawls Hannah starts." Yes, Hannah started brawls, and it could not be because her father favored anyone over her. But today, she was not brawling, and once she woke up from the daze of her bow and arrows enough to notice the lady and the fiddle, the girl begged a concert, and got one. Afterward, Fire walked around the archery range with Archer and Nash, her guard trailing behind. The simultaneous company of these two men was a funny thing, for they mirrored each other, each in love with her, gloomy and moping, each resigned to hopelessness, and each subdued, but resenting the presence of the other. And neither doing much to hide any of this from her, for as usual, Nash's feelings were open, and Archer's body language unmistakable. But Nash's manners were better than Archer's, at least for the moment, and the court had a greater hold on his time. As Archer's choice of conversation became less inclusive, Nash took his leave. Fire considered Archer, so tall and fine-looking beside her, his bow in hand. She spoke quietly. "You drove him away with your talk of our childhood in the north. He wants you. He doesn't deserve you. As you deserve me." Archer's face took on a grim smile. "I've always known I don't deserve you. Every regard you've ever shown me has been a gift undeserved." "That is not true," she thought to him. "You were my loyal friend even before I could walk." "You've changed," Archer said. "Do you realize how much? The more time I spend with you, the less I know you. All these new people in your life, and your happiness, and this princess child, and her dog, of all things, and the work you do every day. You use your power every day. I used to have to fight with you to even use it to defend yourself." Fire took a careful breath. "Archer, sometimes in the courtyards or the hallways, I've taken to changing people's attention so they don't notice me, so I can walk by without being hassled, and everyone else can continue their work without distraction." "You're not ashamed of your abilities anymore," Archer said. "And the sight of you, you're glowing. Truly, Fire, I don't recognize you." "Hi, Tin." "But the ease with which I've come to use my power, can you understand how it frightens me, Archer?" Archer stopped for a moment, his gaze fierce, his eyes on 3 dark dots in the sky. The archery range stood at a high point overlooking the sea. A trio of raptor monsters circled now over some trade boat below. The arrows flew from the bows of its sailors. It It was a rough autumn sea, and there was a blustery autumn wind, and arrow after arrow failed to hit its mark. Archer took one stunning, lazy shot. The bird fell. Then Fire's guard, Edler, connected with a shot of his own, and Archer clapped him on the shoulder to congratulate him. Fire thought her question forgotten, and so she was surprised when he spoke. You've always been far more afraid of yourself than of any of the terrors in the world outside yourself. Were it the other way around, we'd both have peace. He said it kindly, not critically. It was his forlorn wish for peace. Fire hugged her fiddle now with both arms, muting the strings with the fabric of her dress. Archer, you know me. You recognize me. We must get past this thing between us. You must accept how I've changed. I could not bear it if by refusing your bed I should also lose your friendship. We were friends before. We must find a way to be friends again. I know, he said. I know, love. I'm trying. I am. He walked away from her then and stared at the sea. He stood for some time, silent. When he walked back, she was still standing there, holding her fiddle to her breast. After a moment, something like a smile eased the sadness in his face. Will you tell me why you're playing a different fiddle? He said. It was a good story to tell, and distant enough from today's feelings that it calmed her in the telling. The company of Brigand and Garen was a great relief, compared with that of Archer and Nash. They were so easy. Their silences never felt loaded with brave things they yearned to say, and if they brooded, at least it had no connection to her. The three sat in the sunny central courtyard, deliciously warm, for with the approach of winter there were advantages to a black palace with glass roofs. It had been a day of difficult and unproductive work that, for Fire, had yielded little more than a reiteration of my dog's preference for frozen grape wine. An old servant of Genshin's had reported it to her. The servant had read a line or two about it in a letter Genshin had instructed him to burn. A letter from my dog. Fire still couldn't understand this propensity of sworn enemies in the Dells to visit each other and send each other letters. And how frustrating that all the servants had seen was a bit about wine. She slapped at a monster bug on her arm. Garen played absently with his walking stick, which he'd used to walk slowly to this spot. Brigand sat stretched out with his hands clasped behind his head, watching Hannah scuffle with Blotchy on the other side of the courtyard. Hannah will never have friends who are people, Brigand said, until she stops getting into scraps. Blotchy was whirling in circles with his mouth clamped around a stick he'd just found at the base of the courtyard tree. A branch, really quite enormous, that swept a wide and multi-pronged radius as he spun. This won't do, Brigand said now. He jumped up, went to the dog, wrestled the branch away, and broke it into pieces, then gave Blotchy back a stick of less hazardous dimensions. Determined, apparently, that if Hannah should have no friends, at least she should keep both eyes. She has so many friends who are people, Fire said gently when he got back. You know I meant children. She's too precocious for the children of her age, and she's too small for the other children to tolerate. They might tolerate her if she would tolerate them. I fear she's becoming a bully. Fire spoke with certainty. She is not a bully. She doesn't pick on the others or single them out. She isn't cruel. She fights only when she's provoked, and they provoke her on purpose because they've decided not to like her, and they know that if she does fight, they'll punish her. The little brutes. They're using you, Garen muttered to Brigand. Is this just a theory, lady, or something you've observed? It's a theory I've developed on the basis of what I've observed. Brigand smiled soberly. And have you developed a theory about how I might teach my daughter to harden herself to taunts? I'll think on it. Thank the Dells for your thinking. Thank the Dells for my health, Garen said, rising to feet at the sight of Sarah, who entered the courtyard looking very pretty in a blue dress. I shall now bound away. He did not bound, but his steady walking was progress, and Fire watched his every step as if her eyes on his back could keep him safe. Sarah met him and took his arm, and the two set off together. His recent setback had frightened her. Fire could admit this to herself. Yes, I'm reading a book called Fire. His recent setback had frightened her. Fire could admit this to herself now that he was improved. She wished that old King Arn and his mother advisor, conducting their experiments 100 years ago, had discovered just a few more medicines, found the remedies to 1 or 2 more illnesses. Hannah was next to leave them, running to take Archer's hand as he passed through with his bow. Hannah's announced her intentions to marry Archer, Friggin said, watching them go. Uh-oh. Got yoinked again. It'll have to get changed after the game. Well, that was an amazing start. Upton, what happened? Damn. You. Wasn't that close, but all right. Nah, we're losing. I'm not giving. I am not giving you an inch, girly. Sorry. She's slight pre-thrower. There we go. Gosh. Not sure what the point of that was, but alright. Okay, that was solid. Yeah. Okay. Whee! Okay then. Weird. I am gonna go get a quick snack real quick. I'll be back in just a minute, guys. Okay. Yeah, I need water. Can I just refill my ice? Yum. 1 second. Okay. Quick snack. Okay. Anna's announced her intentions to marry Archer, Brigand said, watching them go. Fire smiled into her lap. She crafted her response carefully, but spoke it lightly. I've seen plenty of women fall into an infatuation with him. But your heart can be easier than most other fathers, for she's much too young for his brand of heartbreak. I suppose it's a harsh thing to say of one's oldest friends, but were she 12 years older, I would not let them meet. True to her expectation, Brigand's face was unreadable. You're a little more than 12 years older than Hannah yourself. I'm 1,000 years old, Fire said, just like you. Brigand said. He didn't ask her what she meant, which was for the best, because she wasn't exactly sure. If she was suggesting she was too wise with the weight of her experience to fall prey to infatuation, well, the disproof was sitting before her in the form of a gray-eyed prince with a thoughtful set to his mouth. that she found quite distracting. Fire sighed, trying to shift her attention. Her senses were overloaded. This courtyard was one of the palace's busiest, and, of course, the palace as a whole swarmed with mines. And just outside the palace grounds was stationed the entire First Branch, with which Brigand had arrived yesterday and would depart day after tomorrow. She sensed mines more easily now than she used to. She recognized a good many members of the First Branch, despite their distance. She tried to push the feeling of them away. It was tiring, holding everything at once, and she couldn't decide where to rest her focus. She settled on a consciousness that was bothering her. She leaned forward and spoke low to Brigand. "Behind you," she said. "A boy with very odd eyes is talking with some of the court children. Who is he?" Brigand nodded. "I know the boy you mean. He came with Cutter. You remember the animal trader Cutter? I wanted nothing to do with the man. He's a monster smuggler and a brute. Except that he happens to be selling a very fine stallion that almost has the markings of a river horse. I'd buy him in a breath if the money didn't go to Cutter. It's a bit tacky, you know, me buying a horse that's likely to have been stolen. I may buy him anyway, in which case Garen will have a conniption at the expense. I suppose he's right. I'm not in need of another horse. Though I wouldn't hesitate if you really were a river horse. You know the dappled gray horses, lady, that run wild at the source of the river? Splendid creatures. I've always wanted one, but they're no easy thing to catch. Horses were as distracting to this man as to his child." "The boy," Fire prompted dryly. "Right. Boy's a strange one, and it isn't just that red eye. He was lurking around when I went to look at the stallion, and I tell you, lady, it gave me a funny feeling." "What do you mean, funny feeling?" Brigand squinted at her in perplexity. "I can't exactly say. There was something disquieting about his manner, the way he spoke. I did not like his voice." He stopped, somewhat exasperated, and rubbed his hair so it stood on end. "As I say it, I hear it makes no sense. There was nothing solid about him to fix on as troublesome. But still, I told Hannah to stay away from him, and she had already met him and didn't like him. She said he lies. What do you think of him?" Fire applied herself to the question with a concerned effort. His mind was unusual, unfamiliar, and she wasn't sure how to connect to it. She wasn't even sure how to comprehend the borders of it. She couldn't see it. His mind gave her a very funny feeling indeed, and it was not a good, funny feeling. "I don't know," she said. "I don't know." And a moment later, not quite knowing why. "Buy the stallion, Lord Prince. It will get them out of this court." Brigand left, presumably to do what Fire had said, and Fire sat alone, puzzling over the boy. His right eye was gray, and his left eye was red, which was strange enough in itself. His hair was blonde like wheat, his skin light, and he had the appearance of being 10 or 11. Could he be some kind of Pickian? He was sitting facing her, a rodent monster in his lap, a mouse with glimmering gold fur, who was tying a string around its neck. Fire knew somehow that the creature was not his pet. He pulled the string too tight. The mouse's legs began to jerk. "Stop it," Fire thought furiously, aiming her message at the strange presence that was his mind. He loosened the string immediately. The mouse lay in his lap, heaving with tiny breaths. Then the boy smiled at Fire and stood up and came to stand before her. "It doesn't hurt him," he said. "It's only a choking game for fun." His very words grated against her ears, grated, it seems, against her brain, so horribly, like raptor monsters screeching, that she had to resist the impulse to cover her ears. Yet when she recalled the timbre of his voice, the voice itself was neither unusual nor unpleasant. She stared at him coolly, so that he would not see her bewilderment. "A choking game? All the fun of it is on your side, and it's a sick kind of fun." He smiled again. His lopsided, red-eyed smile was somehow distressing. Is it sick to want to be in control of a helpless, frightened creature? Let it go. "The others believed me when I said it didn't hurt him," he said. "You know not to. Plus, you're awfully pretty, so I'll give you what you are." He bent to the ground and opened his hand. The monster mouse fled, a streak of gold, disappearing into an opening in the roots of a tree. "You have interesting scars on your neck," he said, straightening. "What cut you?" "It's none of your affair," Fire said, shifting her headscarf so that it covered her scars, very much disliking his gaze. I'm glad I got to talk to you, he said. I've wanted to for some time. You're even better than I hoped. He turned around and left the courtyard. What an unpleasant child. It had never happened before, that Fire should not be able to form a conception of a consciousness. Even Brigand's mind, which she couldn't enter, offered the shape and feeling of its barricades to her perception. Even the foggy archer, the foggy guards. She couldn't explain their minds, but she could perceive them. Reaching for this boy's mind was like walking through a collection of twisted mirrors, facing other twisted mirrors, so that all was distorted and misleading, and befuddled to the senses. And nothing could be known or understood. She couldn't get a straight look at him, not even his outline. And this was what she stewed over for some time after the boy left. His stewing was why it took her so long to attend to the condition of the children he'd been talking to. The children in the courtyard, who had believed what he'd said. Their minds were blank, bubbling with fog. Fire could not fathom this fog, but she was certain she'd found its source. By the time she realized she mustn't let him go, the sun was already setting, the stallion bought, and the boy was already gone from the court. And for those who haven't connected the dots, that was the boy from the prologue or beginning. That same night brought information that distracted everyone from the matter of Cutter's boy. It was late evening, and Fire was in the stables when she sensed Archer returning from the city to the palace. It was not a thing she would have sensed so forcefully, not searching for it particularly, except that he was so eager to talk to her and open as an infant, and also slightly drunk. Fire had only just begun to brush Small, who was standing with eyes closed from the bliss of it and drooling onto his stall door. And she wasn't anxious to see Archer if he was both eager and drunk. She sent him a message. We'll talk when you're sober. Some hours later, with her regular guard of 6, Fire followed the maze from her rooms to Archer's. But then outside his door, she was perplexed, for she sensed that Mila, who was off duty, was inside Archer's chamber. Fire's thoughts groped for an explanation, any explanation other than the obvious. But Mila's mind was open, and even strong minds tend to be when they're experiencing what Mila was experiencing just now on the other side of the door. And Fire remembered how sweet and pretty her guard was, and how many opportunities Archer had to notice her. Fire stood staring at Archer's door, silent and shaking. She was quite certain he had never done anything to make her this angry before. She turned on her heel and marched down the hallway. She found the stairs and marched up them, and up, until she burst onto the roof, where she set to marching back and forth. It was cold and damp, and she had no coat, and it smelled like coming snow. Fire didn't notice, didn't care. Her baffled guard stood out of her way so she wouldn't trample them. After some time, the thing happened she'd been waiting for. Mila fell asleep, and none too soon, for it was late now, and Brigand was climbing wearily to the roofs. She mustn't meet Brigand tonight. She would not be able to stop herself from telling him everything, and Archer might deserve to have his laundry aired, but Mila did not. She marched down by a stairway that Brigand was not taking up. She traced the maze again to Archer's rooms and stood outside his door. Archer, she thought to him, get out here now. He emerged quickly, if barefoot and confused, and a bit hastily thrown together. And Fire, for the first time, exercised her privilege of being alone with him, sending her guards to either end of the long corridor. She could not force herself to appear calm, and when she spoke, her voice was scathing. Must you prey on my guard? The puzzlement left his face, and he spoke hotly. I'm not a predator, you know. Women come to me quite willingly. Why should you care what I do? It hurts people. You're careless with people, Archer. Mila. Why Mila? She's 15 years old. She's sleeping now, happy as a kitten in a patch of sun. You're stirring up trouble over nothing. Fire took a breath and spoke low. And in a week's time, when you grow tired of her, Archer, because someone else has captured your fancy, when she becomes despondent or depressed or pathetic or furious because you've snatched the thing away that makes her so happy, I suppose then she'll be stirring up trouble over nothing? You talk as if she's fallen in love with him. He was maddening. She would like to kick him. They always fall in love with you, Archer, always. Once they've known the warmth of you, they always fall in love with you, and you never do with them. And when you drop them, it breaks their hearts. He bit the words off. A curious accusation coming from you. She understood him, but she would not let him turn this into that. We're talking about my friends, Archer. I beg you, if you must have the entire palace in your bed, leave the women who are my friends out of it. All right, Jay. It's called Fire by Kristen Cashore. And I don't see why this should matter to you now when it never did before. I never had friends before. You keep using that word, he said. She's not your friend, she's your guard. Would your friend do what she's done, knowing your history with me? She knows little about it except that it's history, and you forget I'm in a position to know how she regards me. But there must be plenty she hides from you, as she's been hiding her meetings with me all this time. A person may have feelings about you that you don't know. She watched him, crestfallen. He was so physical in his arguments. He loomed, gestured, his face dark or burned with light, his eyes blazed, and he was just as physical with his love and his joy, and that was why they all fell in love with him. For in a world that was dismal, he was alive and passionate, and his attentions, while they lasted, were intoxicating. And she hadn't missed the meaning in his words. This thing with Mila had been going on for some time. She turned away from him, held a hand up against him. She couldn't fight with the appeal of Lord Archer to a 15-year-old soldier girl from the impoverished southern mountains. And she couldn't quite forgive herself for not realizing this might happen, for not paying closer attention to her mind, to Archer's whereabouts, and his company. She dropped her hand, turned back, and spoke with weariness. Of course she has feelings about me, I don't know. But whatever those feelings are, they don't negate the feelings she does show me. For the friendship in her behavior that goes beyond the loyalty of a guard. You will not turn my anchor away from you and onto her. Archer seemed to deflate then. He slumped against the door and stared at his bare toes in the manner of a man accepting that he is lost. I wish you would come home, he said weakly, and for a panicked moment, Fire thought he was going to cry. But then he seemed to take hold of himself. He looked up at her quietly. So you have friends now, and a protective heart. She matched his quietness. I've always had a protective heart. Well, now I have more people inside it. They've joined you there, Archer. Never replaced you. He thought about that for a moment, staring at his feet. You needn't worry about Clara anyway. She ended it almost the moment it began. I believe it was out of loyalty to you. Fire deliberately chose to think of this as good news. She would focus on an ending, whatever it had been, an ending by Clara's choice, rather than the small matter of it having begun. There was a short, sad pause. He said, I'll end things with Mila. And that is where we pause. I didn't pay attention to the spread of abilities. I didn't know this was here. There we go. Almost. No. Oh my god. Nice. Weirdo. Hi, Slacker. Beautiful. You start a new job tomorrow. That's exciting. What are you gonna be doing? Sprinter. Oop. Didn't really need her to get a free sprint, but it gets her away from everybody else, so works for me. Gotta get a kill. We need way less people. Sports memorabilia store, that's interesting. Yeah. Interesting. Doesn't work versus Wraith, buddy. Perfect. Yeah, I intentionally was trying to push her towards the zombie. And instead of going upstairs and trying to take her chances that way, she need to add somebody up here? Thought so. Nice. Yeah, she's just gonna book it out the door. Aw. That was really good. Ragger's gonna go crazy. go Slinger, I guess, and hope that we don't get somebody who doesn't go well with him. Hi, Swagod. Nice to see you. You're on YouTube this time. Last test tomorrow? Hell yeah. That's awesome. Back to where we left off. I forgot to mention we were in chapter 20. Whoops. There was a short, sad pause. He said, I'll end things with Mila. The sooner you do, the sooner it'll be behind her. And you've lost your questioning room privileges with this thing, Archer. I'll not have you there plaguing her with your presence. He glanced up sharply then stood straight. A relieving change of topic. You remind me of the reason I wanted to talk to you. Do you know where I was today? Don't be nervous. You're as prepared as you're gonna be. Try to focus on relaxing. Do any brushing up of things that you maybe don't feel so confident on. And then make sure you get a good night's sleep. That's gonna help you more than you know. And then also any subjects that you feel like are your weakest, just do a quick skim of everything right before. So at the very least, like, you have a chance to refresh it in case there's something important that you might have forgotten otherwise. Other than that, it'll be what it'll be. Fire couldn't turn away from the subject so easily. He rubbed both temples. I have no idea and I'm exhausted, so whatever it is, have out with it quickly. I was visiting the house of a retired captain who was an ally of my father's, Archer said, by the name of Hart, a rich man and a great friend to the crown. His young wife sent the invitation. Hart himself was not home. Math is definitely rough. Fire rubbed her temples harder. You do Brocker's ally great honor, she said dryly. Well, but listen to this. She's quite a drinker, Hart's wife. And you know what we were drinking? I have no energy for riddles. He was smiling now. A rare Piccian wine made from the juice of frozen grapes, he said. They have a whole case of it hidden at the back of their wine cellar. She didn't know where it came from. She only just discovered it while I was there. She seemed to find it odd that her husband should have hidden it away, but I think it was a wise thing for a known ally of the king to do, don't you? Hello, Turtle. Welcome in. I think if history went more in depth and like they discussed some of the like historical context around the things that you can just find in Googling, they would be more valuable. But because they don't and it's just rote memorization. Oh, okay. We're reading a book in between matches since the queue times for killing with Brand are quite long. Nash felt Captain Hart's treachery very personally, for indeed it took little more than a week of redirected questioning and of watching Hart, while seeming to not watch him, to learn that Lord Mydog on occasion made a present of his favorite wine, and to learn that the messengers Hart sent south to deal with his speculations in the gold mines met up with interesting and obscure fellows along the way, at inns or over drinking games, who were then seen to strike out in a northerly direction that was the straightest path to Mydog. It was enough for Garen and Claire to decide Hart must be questioned. The matter on the table next was how. On a moonlit night in mid-November, Captain Hart set south along the cliff road that led to his second home, a pleasant seaside cottage to which he retreated on occasion to find respite from his wife. Alright, so God, have a good night. Good luck with your tests. You'll have to tell me how they go, or at least how you feel they've gone. Hi, Quentin. Seaside cottage to which he retreated on occasion to find respite from his wife, who drank far more than was good for the health of her marriage. He rode in his very fine carriage and was attended, as usual, not only by his drivers and footmen, but by a guard of 10 men on horseback. It was how a wise man traveled the cliff road in the dark, so that he could defend himself from all but the largest company of bandits. Unfortunately, the company of bandits that hid behind the rocks on that particular night was quite large indeed, and led by a man who, if shaved and dressed to the height of fashion, and seen in daylight engaged in some highly correct activity, might bear a resemblance to the king's steward, Welkley. The bandits set upon the traveling party with great bandit-like howls, but the majority of the ne'er-do-wells roughed up the members of Hart's entourage, went through their pockets, bound them with ropes, and collected Hart's very fine horses. Welkley and several others entered the carriage. Inside, an irate Captain Hart was waiting for them, brandishing sword and dagger. Welkley, with a highly athletic dodge to the left and right that many at court would have found quite surprising, stabbed the captain in the leg with a dart tipped with sleeping poison. One of Welkley's fellows, Toddin, was a man whose shape, size, and bearing were quite similar to Hart's. After a path of speedy undressing and dressing inside the carriage, Toddin was wearing Hart's hat, coat, muffler, and yellow monster-skin boots, whereas Hart was wearing much less than he had been before, and lying insensible in a pile of Toddin's clothing. Toddin now grabbed Hart's sword and rolled with Welkley out of the carriage. Cursing and grunting, they set to sword fighting near the cliff in full view of Hart's bound servants, who watched with horror as the man who appeared to be Hart fell to the ground, clutching his side. A trio of bandits picked him up and hurled him into the sea. The company of bandits now fled, with their plunder of miscellaneous coinage, 14 horses, 1 carriage, and 1 captain inside the carriage, sleeping like the dead. Closer to the city, Hart was slipped into a sack and passed to a delivery man who would bring him into the palace with the night's grain. The rest of the booty was rushed away to be sold on the black market, and finally the bandits returned to their homes, transformed themselves into milkmen, storekeepers, farmers, gentlemen, and threw themselves down for a short night's sleep. In the morning, Hart's men were found by the road, bound and shivering, much ashamed of the story they had to tell. When the news reached the palace, Nash sent a convoy to investigate the incident. Welkley arranged a bouquet of flowers to be sent to Hart's widow. And everyone was relieved that afternoon when word finally came from Toddin's wife that Toddin was in good health. He was a phenomenal ocean swimmer with a great tolerance for cold. The night had clouded over, and the boat sent to pick him up had taken a long time to find him. Naturally, everyone had worried. I got an itch in a weird spot on my back. There we go. Oh my gosh. When they first dragged Captain Hart before Fire, his mind was a closed box and his eyes were screwed shut. For days, Fire could get nowhere with him. I suppose I shouldn't be surprised that an old friend and colleague of Lord Brocker's would be so strong, she said to Musa, Mila, and Neil in the questioning room after yet another session during which Captain Hart hadn't looked at her once. Indeed, lady, Musa said, a man who accomplished all that Commander Brocker accomplished in his time would have chosen strong captains. Fire had been thinking more of what Brocker had endured personally than what he had accomplished militarily. King Nax's mad punishment for Brocker's mysterious crime. Fire watched her 3 guards absently as they brought out a quick meal of bread and cheese. Mila handed Fire a plate, avoiding her eyes. This was Mila's way now. In the last few weeks, since Archer had ended things, she'd shrunk somehow, gone silent and contrite around her lady. Fire, in turn, had been trying to be extra kind, careful not to subject Mila to Archer's presence any more than was necessary. Not a word had passed between the 2 women on the subject, but both of them knew that the other knew. Ravenous, Fire tore off a piece of bread and bit into it, and noticed Mila sitting mutely, staring at her own food but not eating it. I could flay Archer, Fire thought. Sighing, she pushed her attention back to the matter of Captain Hart. He was a man who had achieved much wealth after retiring from the army, gradually accustoming himself to comfort. Might comfort soften him now? Over the next couple of days, Fire arranged for Hart's cells in the dungeon to be cleaned and improved. He was given fine bedding and carpets, and books and lighting, and good food and wine, and warm water to wash whenever he asked for it, and rat traps, which were perhaps the greatest luxury of all. One day, with her hair swirling around her shoulders, and wearing a dress perhaps a bit more low-cut than was her usual style, she wandered down to his underground lair to visit. When her guard opened the door for her, he looked up from his book to see who was there. His face slackened. "I know what you're doing," he said, and perhaps he did, but it wasn't enough to stop him staring, and Fire knew she'd found her way in. She imagined a man in prison might be lonely, especially if he had a pretty wife at home who preferred wine and young men to her husband. All right, thanks for dropping in, Quentin. Bye-bye. She sat next to him on his bed during her visits. She ate whatever food he offered her and accepted cushions for her back. Her nearness loosened him, and a battle began that was far from easy. At his weakest, Hart was still strong. Clara, Garen, and Nash soaked up what Fire learned like the sand of Cellar Harbor during a rainstorm. I still can't get him to say anything useful about my dog, Fire said, but truly we're in luck, for he happens to know a great deal about Genshin, and he's less unwilling to spill Genshin's secrets. He's my dog's ally, Clara said. Why should we trust what he thinks he knows about Genshin? Couldn't Genshin be sending out false messengers for my dog to catch, just as he does with us? He could, Fire said, but I can't quite explain it. The certainty with which Hart speaks, the confidence in his assertions. He knows the tricks my dog and Genshin have been playing on us. He's quite positive his knowledge of Genshin is not of that ilk. He won't tell me his sources, but I'm inclined to believe this information. All right, Clara said. Tell us what we've learned, and we'll use whatever means we can to confirm it. He says Genshin and his son Gunnar are coming north to attend the Palace Gala that happens in January. That's nervy, Clara said. I'm impressed. Garen snorted. Now that we know about his indigestion, we can torture him with cake. Genshin will pretend to apologize to the court for his rebel activities, Fire said. He'll talk of renewed friendship with the crown, but in the meantime his army will move northeast from his estate and hide in the tunnels of the Great Grays near Fort Flood. Sometime in the days after the gala, Genshin intends to assassinate both Nash and Brigand, and he'll ride like blazes to the location of his army and attack Fort Flood. The twins' eyes were wide. Not nervy at all, Garen said. Stupid. What kind of commander starts a war in the middle of winter? The kind that's trying to catch his enemy by surprise. In addition to which, Garen continued, he should send someone anonymous and expendable to do his assassinating. What will happen to his clever plan when he gets himself killed? Well, Clara said, it's no news Genshin's stupid. And thank the Dells for Brigand's foresight. The second is already at Fort Flood, and he's taken the first quite near there as we speak. What of the third and the fourth? Fire asked. They're in the north, Claire said, patrolling, but in readiness to fly wherever they're needed. You must tell us where they're needed. I have no idea, Fire said. I cannot get him to tell me my dog's plans. He says my dog intends to do nothing, sit back while Genshin and the king reduce each other's numbers. But I know he's lying. He also says my dog's sending his sister Murgda south to the gala, which is true, but he won't tell me why. Lady Murgda to the gala as well? Clara exclaimed. What's gotten into everyone? What else? Garen said. You must give us more. I have nothing more. I've told you everything. Apparently Genshin's plans have been in place for some time. Nash was clutching his forehead. This is very grim. Genshin has a force of some 10,000, supposedly, and we've 10,000 at Fort Flood to meet him, but in the north we have 10,000 scattered far and wide. 15,000, Fire said. We can call the auxiliaries. All right then. We've 15,000 scattered far and wide, and my dog has what? Do we even know? 20,000? 21,000? To attack wherever takes his fancy. My mother's fortress, or Fort Middle, Fort Flood if he wishes, the city itself, with days, possibly weeks, before our troops can organize to meet him. He can't hide 20,000 soldiers, Clara said. Not if we're looking for them. Even in the Little Grays, he can't hide them. He could never get all the way to the city without being seen. I need Briggan, Nash said. I want Briggan here now. He'll come when he can, Nash, Garen said, and we're keeping him informed. Fire found herself stretching out with the feelers of her mind to soothe the king, who was frightened. Nash perceived what she was doing, reached for her hand. With thanks, and with something else he couldn't help, he kissed her fingers. We'll pause a little sooner there, because that's going to end chapter 20, and then we'll get into chapter 21. 2 range killers, that'll be fun. Oh. I can't believe I missed. Oh my gosh, I got stuck on a fucking tree. There we go. Damn. Good dodge. Couldn't strafe it to the right. $282, nice. Oh my goodness, I'm so bad. I expect that you'll... Oh, what? I expect that you'll jump scare me with it. Oh my gosh. Their gen speed has got to be abysmally slow. What? No, I can't believe I'm missing so much. There we go. What in the hell is her pathing, dude? Was what the fuck? Thank you for the raid. Hello, children. Are you kidding me? Gotta say, you better get the fuck out. Oh well. This is what I mean when I hope we got a killer that would be able to combo with him, because 2 110 killers is just... Oh, I pinged her too, that's funny. Yeah, 2 110 killers is gonna be really shitty in 2v8. Can I stop having these notifications? They're so fucking loud and invasive. I don't know, those really weird. Okay. Well, for those uninitiated who are coming in with the raid, my name is Neko Andromeda. I primarily play DBD, but right now, while we're in between going for 2v8, I'm reading a book called Fire by the author Christian Cashwar. So, we are almost 2/3 of the way through the book, so not a lot of it's gonna make sense, but it's still really fun to listen to. Chapter 21. It was a curious matter of Delian politics, the yearly gala at court to which everyone of any significance was invited. The 7 courtyards were converted to ballrooms, and loyalists and traitors came together to dance, to sip from goblets of wine while pretending to be friends. Almost everyone capable of travel attended, though my dog and Genshin generally didn't dare, a pretense of friendship on their parts being a mite too incredible. And for a week or so, the palace was bursting with the servants and guards and pets, and the endless requirements of guests. The stables were too crowded, and the horses fidgety. Brocker had explained to Fire once that the gala was always held in January to celebrate the lengthening of days. December was a month of preparation. On every level of the palace, Fire saw workmen engaging in repairs. Window washers hung from the courtyard ceilings and wall washers from the balconies, polishing glass and stone. Garen, Clara, Nash, and Fire were also preparing. If Genshin intended to kill Nash and Brigid in the days after the gala, then ride to Fort Flood to start a war, then Genshin and Gunnar must be killed the day of the gala, and Lady Margda might as well be disposed of too, as long as she was around. Then Brigid must fly to Fort Flood and start the war himself, surprising Genshin's armies in their tunnels and caves. Tunnel fighting, Garen said, and in January. I don't envy them. What'll we do about the north? Nash kept asking. Maybe we can learn something about My Dog's plan from Lady Margda at the gala, Garen said, before we kill her. And how exactly are we going to pull off these assassinations? Nash said, pacing wild-eyed. They'll be constantly guarded. They'll let no one near them. We can't start a war in the court. I can't think of a worse time or place to have to murder 3 people in secret. Sit down, brother, Claire said. Calm down. We've time yet to sort it out. We'll think of something. Brigid promised to return to court by the end of December. He wrote, from wherever he was, that he had sent a force north to collect Lord Brocker and bring him south, for apparently the old commander had offered his assistance to the younger in event of an actual war. Fire was stunned. She had never known Brocker to travel farther than the neighboring town. At night, with her guard on the roof and missing Brigid's company, she stared at the city before her, trying to comprehend what was coming. In the north, troops of the king's soldiers searched the mountains and tunnels, and all of My Dog's usual stomping grounds for his army. Spies searched Pikia in the south and west, all to no avail. Either My Dog was hiding his men very well, or he'd banished them with magic. Brigid sent reserves to fortify Rowan's fortress, Fort Middle, and the southern gold mines. The number of soldiers stationed in the city rose noticeably. For her part, Fire had taken to grilling Captain Hart about the animal trader Cutter and his young fog maker with mismatched eyes. But Hart claimed to know nothing of it, and finally, Fire had to believe him. After all, the boy didn't seem to fit into the war plans, and neither did the poacher or stranger in her woods up north, or the archer who'd wanted to look at her view. As to where they did fit in, Fire was alone in her speculations. "I'm sorry, Fire," Clara said flatly. "I'm sure it's as creepy as you say, but I've no time for it if it's nothing to do with the war or the gala. We'll focus on it afterward." The only person who cared was Archer, who was little help, for, true to his nature, he only assumed what was the base of the matter was someone's intention to steal Fire from him. As it turned out, Clara's preoccupation did extend beyond the war and the gala on one point. She was pregnant. The princess brought Fire to Cellar Harbor to tell her, so that the roars of the falls would keep everyone, even Fire's guard, from overhearing the conversation. Clara was dry-eyed and straight about it, and once Fire had adjusted to the news, she found that she was not particularly surprised. "I was careless," Clara said. "I've never liked those herbs. They nauseate me, and I've never gotten pregnant before. I suppose I convinced myself I couldn't. Now I'm paying for my stupidity, for everything nauseates me." She hadn't seemed nauseated to Fire. In recent weeks, she seemed nothing but calm and well. She was a fine actress. Fire knew this, and probably the best woman for this accident to befall. She was not lacking in money or support, and she would do her work up to the very day the child was born, and start again right after. And she would be a strong mother, and practical. "Archer is the father," Clara said. Fire nodded. She'd assumed this. "He'll be generous once you tell him. I know he will." "I don't care about that. What I care about is your feeling, whether I've hurt you by jumping into his bed and then being stupid enough for this to happen." Fire was startled by this, and touched. "You've certainly not hurt me," she said firmly. "I have no hold on Archer and no jealousy where he's concerned. You mustn't worry on my behalf." Clara's eyebrows rose. "You're very strange." Fire shrugged. "Archer has always had enough jealousy of his own to turn me off of the feeling." Clara looked into Fire's face, into her eyes, and Fire looked back, quiet and matter-of-fact, determined that Clara should see that she meant it. Finally, Clara nodded. "This is a great relief to me. Please, don't tell my brothers," she added, sounding anxious for the first time. "They'll all rise up, determined to hack him to pieces, and I'll be furious with them. We've too much else to be thinking about. This couldn't have been more ill-timed." She paused for a moment, then spoke plainly. "And besides, I don't want any harm to come to him. Perhaps he didn't give me everything I hoped he would, but I can't help thinking what he did give me is rather marvelous." It was not the type of gift everyone would welcome in such a way. Fire's guard, Margot, slept in Fire's bedchamber, and Musa and Mila did too on alternating nights. One dawn, Fire woke to this feeling of someone out of place and perceived that Mila was vomiting in the bathing room. Fire rushed to the girl and held her pale hair away from her face. She rubbed Mila's back and shoulders, and as she came fully awake, began to understand what she was seeing. "Oh, lady," Mila said, beginning to cry. "Oh, lady, what must she think of me?" Fire was, indeed, thinking a great many hurried thoughts, and her heart was bursting with compassion. She put an arm around me. "I have nothing but sympathy for you. I'm going to help you however I can." Mila's tears turned to sobs, and she wrapped both arms around Fire. She held on to Fire's hair, speaking raggedly. "I ran out of the herbs." Fire was horrified at this. "You could have asked me for them, or any of the healers." "I could never, lady. I was too ashamed." "You could have asked Archer. He is a lord. How could I trouble him?" She was crying so hard she was choking. "Oh, lady, I've ruined my life." Now Fire was furious over Archer's lack of trouble, for most certainly all of this had happened at little inconvenience to him. He held the girl tight and rubbed her back and made hushing noises to soothe her. It seemed to comfort Mila to hold on to her hair. "There's something I want you to know," Fire said, "and you must remember it now more than ever." "Yes, lady?" "You may always ask me for anything." It was in the coming days that Fire began to feel the lie in her words to Clara. It was true she was not jealous of Clara or Mila for anything they'd done with Archer, but she was not immune to the feeling of jealousy. Though she was brainstorming, plotting, planning with the royal siblings, her outward self-focus was on the detail of the coming gala and the war. Inside, in her moments of quiet, Fire was grievously distracted. She imagined what it would be like if her own body were a garden of brown soil sheltering a seed. How she would warm that seed if it were hers and feed it, and how ferociously she would protect it. How ferociously she would love that dot even after it left her body and grew away from her, and chose the way it would wield an enormous power. When she became nauseated and fatigued, her breasts swollen and sore, she began to think of herself as pregnant, even though she knew it was impossible. The pain was a joy to her, and then, of course, her bleeding came, and tore her pretending apart. She knew it had only been the usual symptoms of her pre-bleeding time, and she found herself crying bitterly to know she wasn't pregnant, as Mila had cried to know she was. And her grief was frightening, because it had its own will. Grief filled her mind with comforting, terrible ideas. In the middle of December planning, Fire made a choice. She hoped she chose right. On the very last day of December, which happened to be Hannah's 6th birthday, Hannah appeared at Fire's door, tattered and crying. Her mouth bled, and bleeding knees peeked through the holes in both trouser legs. Fire sent for a healer. When it was determined that Hannah was not crying over any injury to her body, Fire sent the healer away, knelt before the girl, and hugged her. Finally, she came to understand what had happened. The others had taunted Hannah about her father, because he was always away. They told Hannah that Briggan was forever leaving because he wanted to get away from her. Then they told her he wasn't coming back this time. That was when she started hitting them. In her gentlest voice, with her arms around the girl, Fire told Hannah over and over that Briggan loved her, that he hated to leave her, that the first thing he always did on his return was go find her, that indeed, she was his favorite topic of conversation and his greatest happiness. "You wouldn't lie to me," Hannah said to Fire, her sobs coming quiet. Which was true, and which was the reason Fire said nothing on the point of Briggan coming home this time. It seemed to her that to assure anyone Briggan was ever coming home was always to risk a lie. He'd been gone nearly 2 months, and in the last week, no one had heard a word from him. Fire gave Hannah a bath and dressed her in one of her own shirts that made a long-sleeved dress that Hannah found quite funny. She fed Hannah dinner, and then, still sniffling, the girl fell asleep in Fire's bed. Fire sent word with one of her guards so that no one would be alarmed. When Briggan's consciousness appeared suddenly in her range, she took a moment to calm her own shaking relief, and she sent him a message in his mind. He came to her rooms immediately, unshaven and smelling of the cold, and Fire had to stop herself from touching him. When she told him what the children had told Hannah, his face closed and he seemed very tired. He sat on the bed, touched Hannah's hair, leaned down to kiss her forehead. Hannah woke up. She said, "You're cold, Papa," crawled into his arms, and fell asleep again. Briggan rearranged Hannah on his lap then, and looked over her head at Fire. And Fire was struck by how much she liked having this gray-eyed prince on her bed with his child, that she sat down hard. Luckily, there was a chair behind her. "Welkley tells me you've not been out of your room much this week, lady," Briggan said. "I hope you're not unwell." "I was quite ill," Fire croaked, then bit her tongue because she hadn't meant to tell him. His worry was instant. He opened the feeling of it to her. "No," she said, "don't fret. It was a small thing. I'm recovered." Which was a lie. Her body was sore still and her heart raw as Hannah's knees. But it was what she hoped would be the truth, eventually. He studied her, unconvinced. "I suppose if that's what you say, I'll have to believe you. Would you have the care you need?" "Yes, of course. I beg you, forget it." He lowered his face to Hannah's hair. "I'd offer you birthday cake," he said, "but it looks like we'll have to wait until tomorrow." That night, the stars were cold and brittle, and the full moon seemed very far away. Fire bundled herself up so that she was twice as wide around as usual. On the roof, she found Briggan standing contentedly, hatless in a draught. She blew warm air into her mittened hands. "Are you immune to winter, then, Lord Prince?" He led her to a place protected from the wind by a broad chimney. He encouraged her to lean back against the chimney. When she did, she was surprised, for it was lovely and warm, like leaning against small. Her guard faded into the background. Tinkling sound of the drawbridge bells whispered over the rumbling of the falls. She closed her eyes. Lady Fire, Brigand's voice said. Noosa told me about Mila. Would you care to tell me about my sister? Fire's eyes flashed open. There he was at the railing, his eyes on the city, his breath shooting out like steam. She said, too astonished to build a proper defense. Then what would you like to know about her? Whether or not she's pregnant, of course. Why should she be pregnant? He turned to her then, and their eyes met. Fire had a feeling her unreadable face was not as successfully unreadable as his. Because outside her work, he said dryly, she's overly fond of a gamble, and she's thinner, and tonight she ate little and turned green at the sight of the carrot cake, which I assure you is something I've never seen her do once in my life. Either she's pregnant, or she's dying. His eyes turned back to the city, and his voice went smooth. And don't tell me the father of these babies, because then I'd be tempted to harm him, and that would be inconvenient, don't you think? What with Brocker expected and all these people about who adore him. If he deciphered this much, there was no point in pretense. She said mildly, nor would it set an example for Hannah. Oof. He leaned his mouth on his fist. His breath steamed out in every direction. I take it they don't know about each other yet, and I take it I'm about to keep all of it secret. Is Mila as unhappy as she looks? Oh my goodness, I cannot. There we go. Jesus. Almost. Man, the hard W key distance is just insane. Yeah. I needed him to be over there. Oh gosh. I meant to release it at the last second. That sucks. Oh my gosh. Okay, this one's dead. Nice. Why are you leaving her on the ground? Oh my god, don't. You have to wait. No. You're not gonna do that. Not on my watch. Not while I can stop you. My goodness. I think I'm just not doing well with killing. Let's flip to the survivor side, have some quick games, and I'll probably only play for a little bit more. So I'm starting to feel a little worn out. Oh hey, it's the end from last match. Oh my gosh, so many splinters. My god, there'd be 4 of them. That's insane. Oof, one of the kill aces. Bad ping. Nemesis Hunters. And it's the fucking bugged skin. God, that sucks. Oh my god, Viv. Oh geez, they're both over here. I heard her, but I don't know where she is. That shouldn't have hit me. Broken pallet there, but everybody's really far away. Somebody? Anybody? Okay, that's kind of a waste, but alright. Oh boy. You guys do that. I got a thing to do. Okay, good. Do that one back there. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That also should not have hit me. I was behind the rock. Oh my gosh. So the Nemi's the one with the bad ping. God, that sucks. Oh my god. Really? Don't reload, don't reload, don't reload. Oh my god. Yeah. He brought them over to the door, so there's nothing I can do. Man, that really sucks. We were so close. I guess I should have healed first. Damn. Hat check. Again. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry you're not feeling well still. It really sucks. Hi, Hijinks. Thank you for lurks. Always nice to see ya. Alright, good luck in getting some sleep, Jack. And take some medicine if you need to. Oh, Lynn. Interesting. Okay, bye. Trapper Legion. Wow. Think. Oh my gosh. Over there, I think. Let's see what that one is. I thought he was gonna put down a trap, which is why I was... Oh my god, girl, you almost walked right into that. Man, this has got used twice. Thank. They're both over there, so we should be able to push this without getting interrupted. Oh my god, I'm so bad. That is shack gone. I need to put it back. Still got 3 gens left. Got 2 gens working, which is great. That one's really far along. Oh, I thought he put it over by the pallet. I'm dumb. I misunderstood the placement. That's entirely my fault. I didn't even think about it being just in the middle of the grass. Oh my gosh. Hey, can you fucking stop? No. No, don't touch me. Probably not gonna get anything better than a purple key, but... No. 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 Don't touch me. No. You? Leave. Fuck out. Go away. Go away. Leave. Go. Go. Go away. Go away. Get up. Go. No. Go away. No. No. Go away. No. Weird. Why? Bro. The Legion's not gonna make it up here. Relax. Oh. Poor Legion. Oh, why do I have a bad connection? What? Can I go reveal his aura from? Oh no, I have to be. Legion. Can you do the gen, buddy? Like... What is happening? You're letting people die by not progressing the game. Bullshit. I thieve it. Down instead of her to keep her from dying. Come on, guys. It's one gen. For the love of fuck. Do the gen. There's already so much blood, it doesn't matter. Whatever. Fine. Oh. There's nothing I can do in that instance. Like... Oh, wow, it's down to 200%. We'll do one more. Or medics is just ridiculous. You work on the gen. Yeah. Oh, ghost face. Legion ghost face is an interesting combo, but I suppose I'm guessing they didn't queue up together. Yeah. I wasn't paying attention. That's my bad. I'm also feeling quite worn out, so my brain must be not working quite right. Oh well. Yeah, okay. Get her, please. Thank you. Take. Aww. I don't care. I thought he was gonna be funny about it. Oh well. I got her on their radar. That's the important thing. Easy report. Yeah, if that's gonna be the type of teammates we get, I'm definitely calling it there for the night. So that is gonna be it for me today, everybody. I really appreciate everyone sticking around, hanging out, being here in general. We will be back again tomorrow for some more DBD shenanigans. Probably continuing with 2v8, basically killer until I don't feel like playing killer anymore, and then we'll do a little bit of survivor, and we'll just keep that up until 2v8 is gone. Don't forget that we do still have goals available until the end of the month. All of the extensions for subathon obviously are no longer available. But everything else is still there to be able to be earned. So have fun with that. And then at the end of the month, I will reset them. So, but I'm going to call it there. I love you all so very, very much. Have a good one, everyone. Au revoir and good night.